What's up, YouTube? This is Mathos97 and welcome back to an episode of WWE 2K14 Universe Mode. This is episode number 44 and we are here with main event. And as you can see, here are the championship rankings as we usually do in the episodes.
Kick things off, and in case you're new around here, you can kind of see what's going on here in these rankings. But now that I think about it, not too sure. I might stop showing these at the beginning of the episodes because really, rankings don't play a huge factor in my universe mode because I like to do things more on the fly, kind of book my own stuff. So I don't know. Do you guys like me showing the rankings at the beginning of the episodes, or do you think maybe I should stop doing that and just, maybe kind of show you guys the champions and just go into it, or not even do that and just start with the match card? Or how far away from the pay-per-view. But anyway, so you can see Curtis Axel taking on David Otunga, Samurai, Oksana, AJ, and Lita in a Fatal 4-Way. Fandango takes on Sin Cara in the main event, Chris Jericho versus Alberto Del Rio. So let's go ahead and simulate here. Fandango defeats Sin Cara. Bit of a matchup, superstars on SmackDown. And Lita, actually it was a tag team match, AJ and Lita versus Samurai and Oksana. AJ and Lita get the victory. Lita ended up scoring the pin there, I guess. And it's been a while since we had a genuine David Otunga squash match, so I figured, what the heck, let's go ahead, feed him to Curtis Axel. This can get me some footage for the pay-per-view promos that I like to do, and I mean, come on now, Otunga, I mean, we gotta squash him. He shouldn't be in this game, in my opinion, so we gotta make the best of it. So let's just go ahead, feed him to Curtis Axel, nice Hangman's face buster into the cover, and that's gonna be all she wrote for that matchup. So Curtis Axel defeats David Otunga in that squash match, which I feel was absolutely necessary to this episode of main event. But anyway, so that means we're going to move into our main event matchup, which is between Chris Jericho and Alberto Del Rio, which we know both those superstars were traded. Of course, Del Rio, former SmackDown, traded to Raw, and Jericho traded from Raw to SmackDown. So that is going to be up next, but as you can see, Curtis Axel getting some celebration time here. We know he's going to be taking on Daniel Bryan at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. We know that Paul Heyman came down. We know Daniel Bryan, there's a stipulation on this matchup, because if Daniel Bryan defeats Curtis Axel, then he is guaranteed a matchup with Brock Lesnar, the Beast Incarnate. Paul Heyman, I don't know, Paul Heyman, he has been known to, lie and fool people. But I think Paul Heyman is genuinely serious about this one. I think if Daniel Bryan defeats Curtis Axel, I mean, really, what else is Paul Heyman going to do with Daniel Bryan other than give him his match with Brock Lesnar? Because, I mean, Bryan, he's on this quest to defeat CM Punk's former opponents, and Brock Lesnar is next in line. So I don't really think Paul Heyman's going to have a choice other than to give Bryan his matchup with Brock Lesnar. So that's even if Daniel Bryan can defeat Curtis Axel. Maybe what Curtis Axel said on Raw could be true. Maybe he has been stepping up his ring work, and you never know, he might be a threat to Daniel Bryan. We don't know. Curtis Axel has been. He was a former SmackDown superstar, got defeated by Ryback, which cost him his SmackDown career, and you never know, what has he done in that time? He could have been training non-stop before Paul Heyman brought him over here to Raw. So, I mean, you never know, Curtis Axel may bring something new to the table, and I'm sure he's going to have to in order to defeat Daniel Bryan. But now we can move on here to our main event of main event. This one is between Chris Jericho and Alberto Del Rio. Like I said, these two superstars swapping shows in the recent trade that took place shortly after the No Way Out pay-per-view. And I don't know, is it a coincidence that Chris Jericho was the man traded? We know that he faced off with Daniel Bryan at No Way Out and lost. Paul Heyman, I don't know, maybe is he looking to keep Daniel Bryan down and Jericho losing to Daniel Bryan? Paul Heyman, is he a little upset about that? Is that maybe why Chris Jericho was the superstar traded? Was there a little bit of bias there? Or, I mean, really, what else was there for Jericho to do? I mean, Jericho, he has been getting victories, and I think if he had defeated Daniel Bryan at No Way Out, he would have been readily put in that WWE Championship title picture, but then he lost to Daniel Bryan, and I don't know, where was Jericho going to go from there? Well, I guess Paul Heyman pretty much told him he's going to SmackDown. And Del Rio now coming to Monday Night Raw.
So we'll have to see how Del Rio can do on Raw and how fortune will fare for Chris Jericho. But as we can see, Alberto Del Rio coming out once again, sporting the Monday Night Raw red. But I actually said that before, that this is Mexican colors, so yeah. Anyway, so we know that Alberto Del Rio faced off against CM Punk at the No Way Out pay-per-view, an impromptu matchup scheduled by Paul Heyman on the pre-show. And then, of course, they faced off on the actual pay-per-view. CM Punk got the win there, but Del Rio put on a pretty good match. And then the next night on Monday Night Raw, he faced Daniel Bryan, and yet again a losing effort, but once again, very good matchup. So Alberto Del Rio he's making quite the impact since coming to Monday Night Raw. This is now the third episode in a row we get to see Alberto Del Rio's beautiful face on this universe mode. And that's more than we can say about his presence on SmackDown. I mean, ever since, he was a former World Heavyweight Champion, won the title at Extreme Rules. Then he lost it in a triple threat at Over the Limit to Sheamus. And since then, Del Rio kind of disappeared off SmackDown. So, I don't know, this trade to Raw is probably the best thing for Del Rio. I don't know why Alberto Del Rio is the superstar he picked out. Obviously, he saw something in Del Rio, and Del Rio was being misused over on SmackDown. He really wasn't doing too much. He was in the the SummerSlam Battle Royal for the World Heavyweight Championship. Didn't have too much of a dominant presence in that matchup. So, Paul Heyman obviously saw an opportunity to bring in Alberto Del Rio. And what is this? Del Rio, oh my! A suplex backbreaker. What a move by Del Rio. That's something we haven't seen from Del Rio in the past. One of those new DLC moves. Definitely vicious. And it's going to help. It's definitely going to tap into Alberto Del Rio's arsenal. It fits in nicely. So he likes to go for that, the backstabber kind of things. And then, of course, his vicious kicks and all the damage to the arm, which we can see right there, working on the arm of Chris Jericho. But, Alberto Del Rio, this is a big opportunity for him if he can defeat Chris Jericho. I guess we can see which superstar is going to get the better end of the deal in this matchup. Of course, SmackDown acquiring Chris Jericho, Raw getting Del Rio. We'll see, I guess, who truly was the greater superstar in this trade. But both these superstars could use this victory. Jericho, he wasn't doing so bad on Raw in recent weeks. And then, of course, the loss to Daniel Bryan. That was a big loss for Chris Jericho on the No Way Out pay-per-view. So Jericho could really use a victory here to kind of rebound off of that. Alberto Del Rio, on the other hand, definitely needs a victory, as on SmackDown he hasn't really had much of a presence, and he's coming off of 2 losses, one to Punk and one to Daniel Bryan in the past 2 days. So Alberto Del Rio definitely is gonna want this victory bad. He's really in need of this victory. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I'm really gonna make this change, but since Main Event now is live on Tuesdays on the WWE Network, I could maybe move Main Event on the schedule. I really don't think it really means a whole lot, but you could say that Del Rio's competed 3 times in 3 days, but now this is still a Wednesday show, so 3 times in 4 days. Not like that's even a big deal. It's kind of a random tangent there, but anyway. Whoa, what the heck was that? Jericho went for some sort of a drop kick. Del Rio kind of punched him, and Jericho landed on the top of his head. But anyway, let's get back into this matchup now. Del Rio, big kick right to the side of the head of Chris Jericho. And now Alberto Del Rio, kick right to the arm of Y2J, the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla. Every time Jericho's in a match, I gotta do that at least once. But the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla is down right now. Del Rio looking to take the advantage in this one. Went for the kick, but Jericho countered. Delivered a kick of his own right to the leg of Del Rio. And now Del Rio, 2 kicks to the leg of Jericho. And here's Del Rio now working on the arm. Going back to the arm of Chris Jericho. Trying, of course, to soften him up for that cross arm breaker. And this is a matchup of 2 submission experts. Jericho, of course, Walls of Jericho, and the Lion Tamer, which he has made famous. And then, of course, Del Rio with the cross arm breaker, the move he made famous. Both these superstars, great submission specialists. And Jericho, a nice float over neck breaker, taking down Alberto Del Rio. But Del Rio back to his feet, delivers a shot right to the side of the head of Jericho. Blocks a chop there from Jericho. But now Jericho, nope, it's Del Rio on the offensive, has him in a headlock. But Chris Jericho takes him down with a drop toe hold. And now Del Rio back to his feet, delivers another punch right to the face. Chris Jericho, another kick right to the upper leg, the thigh of Chris Jericho. Now taking him down with a nice leg sweep. And now here's Jericho, drop kick right to the face of Alberto Del Rio. As Jericho plants him over there into the turnbuckle. Went for a drop kick, but no, Del Rio sidestepped. And here's Jericho once again with another neck breaker, taking down Alberto Del Rio. And Jericho now, flying cross body, nice splash onto Alberto Del Rio. And here's Jericho, going for the walls of Jericho. Can he get it locked in? He's trying to flip Del Rio over. Del Rio trying to fight it. And no, Jericho's got it locked in. Del Rio may be forced to tap, or is he too close to the ropes? As you can see, Del Rio trying to crawl, trying to get to the ropes to force the break. And yeah, I don't think he got to the ropes, but there was a break there. Jericho was going for something, but Del Rio countered. And here's a roll-up now by Jericho. Could he have him? 2 count. No! Del Rio kicks out just at the last second. Jericho almost caught Del Rio there. And now a nice Northern Lights suplex into the cover. That's 2. No, Del Rio once again with a kick out. And now rolling away, trying to distance himself from Chris Jericho. That's a very smart strategy by Del Rio. As Jericho's red hot right now. He's got the momentum. Del Rio wants to try to, bide his time, have Jericho sort of cool off, and give Del Rio a chance to recompose himself and recover the offensive in this one. Jericho now throwing Del Rio back into the ring. There's a nice chop and a big boot right to the side of the head as Del Rio was dangling over that apron there. And Jericho now back into the ring. I had Del Rio there, but Del Rio counters and plants Jericho right on his face. And here's Del Rio measuring Chris Jericho for that cross arm breaker. Jericho, don't turn around. You might not like the view. Wait a minute. Elbow right to the face. Nice counter by Jericho into a code breaker. Jericho may have done it here. I think Del Rio's out of it. I think he's out cold. Chris Jericho hooks the leg. 1, 2, 3. And Chris Jericho is victorious here on Main Event. Chris Jericho defeats Alberto Del Rio with a nice counter of the cross arm breaker, turning it into a code breaker. Very nice move by Chris Jericho to get himself the victory. This was a pretty hard fought bout between these two superstars, and Jericho gets a victory that I think he needed. Del Rio suffers another loss, but still trying to settle in there on the Raw roster. We'll have to see how Del Rio fares in the next couple of weeks. And there you can see the code breaker that knocked Del Rio out. And that was it. That was all she wrote. Chris Jericho getting the victory over Alberto Del Rio. And Jericho here on Main Event gets the victory. So this could be the start of a bright future over on Friday night's SmackDown. And wait a minute! Wait a minute! That's the World Heavyweight Champion, the new World Champion Mark Henry attacking Alberto Del Rio. And Chris Jericho looking to give a nice first impression of the World Champion. Clothesline over the top rope. Jericho takes Mark Henry out of the ring, saves Alberto Del Rio. And could that be a potential matchup we see in the next couple of weeks? Jericho, could he be going after the World Heavyweight Champion Mark Henry after that attack? We do know that Mark Henry defeated Sheamus, so Sheamus in that title picture as well. But Jericho, that is one hell of a first impression on the blue brand as he takes Mark Henry out. As Mark Henry, I don't know what he was trying to do there, just kind of give a parting shot to Alberto Del Rio, I guess. Not exactly sure, just trying to make some sort of a statement, saying that he's an aggressive World Heavyweight Champion, he will take you out. And Jericho putting the brakes on that one, stopping Mark Henry from assaulting Del Rio. But that's it for this episode. I want to thank you all for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for the next one. Keep on YouTubing.